So first off, congratulations on The Subject. It's a really interesting, provocative film, which I just watched. Um, First off, why don't you start off by setting up the premise for us and talk a little bit about who your character is and what transpires in the film.
Sure thing. Well, I play Phil Waterhouse, a documentary filmmaker who is currently, when we meet him, still sort of reeling in all the accolades that he received for his previous film, and he's starting to film his second, his follow-up project, I guess. But when we meet him, there's starting to be some sort of controversy surrounding his previous film. We come to learn that he filmed his subject's death, basically, right? So he's been following a kid who's joining a gang in Harlem, and ultimately he dies while the cameras are rolling. And so the film initially sort of raises these sort of questions, this sort of moral, what is the moral obligation of a documentary filmmaker? Which personally, I love documentary films, but it definitely made me see things in a different light, right? It kind of goes, there's potentially more than meets the eye here, and what happens is the tables are basically turned on Phil. It's almost tonally, it's really interesting because it kind of becomes almost a sort of a psychological thriller in a way. He's being followed and filmed by someone he doesn't know. The revelation later is that it's without giving too much away, I suppose, it's the mother of the kid who died on film. And so the tables are being turned on Phil. Ultimately, there's this dramatic third act confrontation between her and Phil. And it's for me, this movie just raises a lot of really important questions. I'm not used to doing stuff like this, not to say comedy isn't important, but the films that I've done specifically don't necessarily have much important things to say. So for me, that was a large part of the appeal. Also because, just dramatically speaking, I don't get to sort of access these kinds of things in the roles that I normally play. To that end, I was actually very scared to do this. And so that was part of the fun. But, it's interesting. We shot this movie pre-Black Lives Matter. And here we are, 2021. The world is a little bit different. I feel like some of the questions that the movie asks, now are being asked in these sort of, in more public forums, perhaps. It's interesting. I just think the timing of it all. But that's a really bad. It's a really, really bad synopsis of the movie. I don't know. I've just gone off on a weird tangent. I apologize.
Yeah.
I don't even quite know what the quick one-line version.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have it written down here. The PR probably sent it to me this morning, and I probably could have given you that. But it just feels like it's much more than a one-line synopsis.
I agree. I mean, I think in a lot of ways it's kind of a meditation on exploitation of Black lives specifically, and you get that element of turning the tables in there. But talk about that a little bit. I mean, what you took away from the film about, it's a difficult question about what are the responsibilities of someone who's making a documentary or in anything, a news program or whatever, to respect their subject and to not exploit the subject. What did you take away from the film after delving into these topics?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. I think one thing specifically that, changed for me is the idea of maybe this isn't even let me back up. I think Phil doesn't initially anyway see any problem. My guess is that he thought that he was doing good, right? He was doing not only right by his subject, but he was, in a role of being able, where he was able to show a world and a community and the problems inherent to that community, to share it with a wider audience. I think Phil thinks he was doing good, right? But I think the question the movie asks for me, the big question is, should he even be doing that movie in the first place, right? Obviously, there's the death. He captures this kid's death on film. So specifically, it raises the question of what is his moral obligation there, right? Is there this sort of divide where he's supposed to stay on this side and the subject stays on that side? You know, what could or should he have done more to help prevent this kid's death? That's the specific thing. But for me, the bigger question is, should this movie even be made in the first place, or at least by that filmmaker, right? Because in a way, I think just the fact that he's even shooting this and making that his subject, it sort of perpetuates that divide. It literally says, hey, I'm on this side. I have the privilege of being able to, you know, show you on that side. And it is exploitative. It is, you know, it just begs the question if just the simple fact that he can even make this movie, does that in and of itself just perpetuate this divide, right? So, you know, it's maybe he's not the right person that should be even making this film in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's one of the lessons to come out of the Black Lives Matter movement, right? Is, you know, what rights do we have, right? Who's should be in what role, you know, and tackling what subject matter. It's a very delicate thing, but it's understandable, you know, because I do think just sometimes just the roles that people have, even if they're not necessarily quote unquote doing anything wrong, just the fact that they are in that role to begin with is something that just makes this sort of these disparities continue on, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's fascinating to me that you made this film before Black Lives Matter really took off as a movement. So I'm interested, what did that experience of you know, watching all these protests and this big cultural movement happen, how did that affect the way you saw this film that you just made?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I just said, it still kind of applies here. I mean, I don't think I realized when we made the movie that there was a bigger question of should Phil even be making this movie in the first place? I thought it was pretty simply, what is the moral obligation of a filmmaker when he sees that his subject is in trouble? Post Black Lives Matter, my question is, should Phil even be making this movie in the first place? Is it his right to make it? You know, I mean, sure, but there's a problem inherent to that, I think, right? In that it just perpetuates the divide. That's what I got post Black Lives Matter. So I see the movie differently than when I actually made the movie, I think, in that sense. And, you know, just in general, I feel like some of the questions that we're asking in the movie, you know, or some of the things that we're asking the audience to think about, you know, is almost kind of prescient. I feel like now the conversations are happening around the country, around the world, you know, conversations that, you know, maybe it would have changed the movie when we made it. I don't know, but I think it only helps. I think it's, you know, it's an easier movie for people to sort of lock into and have a conversation about now than it was pre Black Lives Matter.
Let's dig into the movie a little bit more. Talk to me about what scene for you was the most challenging to film, and why?
Yeah, it's without question the final act confrontation between my character and Anjanou Ellis's character. So that whole scene, I mean, I call it a scene, but it's literally the whole third act of the movie takes place in Phil's house, and it is, I mean, it is, you know, intense is an understatement. Obviously, it was the scare when I read the film. I mean, when I read the script, that was the scene that was. I mean, it made the movie on the one hand as a reader and ultimately an audience member watching it. It is so important and amazing, that scene. But as an actor, I was scared shitless. You know, first of all, this is not the kind of film. I think I've said it before. It's not the kind of movie I'm used to making, right? And I don't know that, you know, 10 years ago I could have done this movie. I would have passed on this movie if it would have even been offered to me, first of all. But I probably would have passed on it because I was too afraid. but I knew for that confrontation, I was going to have to access things and dig so deep and in a way as an actor that I've never had to before. And to be perfectly blunt, you know, I don't know if you're a parent. The actor post being having kids, and there's the actor that I was before having kids. And that is simply because I'm a different person having it. Like, it is just emotionally, I didn't realize that I had feelings the way I have now having had kids, right? And I very specifically had to tap into all of that for that final scene. And I had wonderful, help. Lanny Zipboy, the director, was incredible. She knew, first time filmmaker, she knew exactly what to say, how to say it, and when to me, to really instill in me the confidence that not only I could do it broadly, but also just specifically what to say to make me do the adjustments that were required. And then, Anjanou is just the consummate professional and scene partner. And she was, she knew when to sort of give me space. She knew when to help. I mean, she was really incredible. And she's just so incredible. She's just brilliant. But yeah, that was the scene for me that I wouldn't say dreading. That sounds kind of heavy, but I was, I was thinking about it nonstop. From the moment I agreed to do the film, I was sort of thinking about that confrontation every single day until it happened, and even for days after. It's sort of, and not just because of its importance to the film, but yeah, I just, it's basically why I did the movie,
Yeah.
It's funny. It's why part of me wanted to pass on the movie, but ultimately it's why I did the movie, was that scene specifically.
The scariness of it.
Yeah, I just didn't know that I could do it. And I was nervous about, you read the script and you go, oh, this is a really important movie. I mean, and you talk to Lanny and you go, oh, what she's trying to do here is incredible. And she's, has a very specific objective and vision for this. And, and she is so socially and morally conscious, Lanny is. And just, she really wants to do good work here. And I don't want to be, that's a lot of pressure. I don't want to mess that up, right? I don't want to be a distraction. Obviously, I come to the table with some baggage already, right? So, which is to say nothing of my confidence in being able to do the part. It's just I already come and I've got to fight that, and so does Lanny. She has to sort of, show a version of me that people are not going to sit there the whole time saying, oh, it's the pie guy, right? And I knew that coming into it. So it was just a lot. It just felt to me like a lot of pressure. Maybe Lanny didn't feel it, but I know I did. And so, but I'm ultimately happy with how it came out. I really am. I'm proud of the work that we did. And I feel like, I did the role justice, and Lanny is happy, and that's all that I could ask for.
Yeah. Well, that really showed through. So, final question to lighten things up a little bit. We always like to ask all the actors that we interview a little bit about how they first got into acting. Tell us what was your very first experience getting into acting, and what made you want to pursue it as a career?
Wow. So, it's funny. I started when I was a little kid in New York. I was 5 years old. 1983 is when I got my first agent. I've had an agent since 1983, which is crazy. Wow. Not the same agent. Not the same agent. I've moved agencies. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I've been doing it since I was in diapers, basically. I remember one of my earliest jobs was, I did a lot of like modeling. Like I would model kids' clothes, whether it was for a catalog for a department store, or I remember doing it on air for like a local morning show here in New York, where I would come out with other kids and we were wearing the new season's back to school clothes. I remember doing that. I did a lot of extra work when I was a kid. I was an extra here in New York. I was an extra in Sea of Love, the Al Pacino movie.
Oh, wow.
9.5 weeks. I was an extra in. The Flamingo Kid. I was an extra in. So I did a lot of like extra work. That was sort of my introduction to the TV and film industry. But then I'd say the moment that I knew for me that I wanted to pursue this as a career was when I did my first play on Broadway. I did it in 1991. And it was just the most fulfilling experience. And, you know, it was crazy because it also, you know, doing a play, especially the, you know, the play was successful. So we did it for quite a long run. There was a real sort of, you know, oh, this is my job component, not like showing up to do a day of modeling or to do a 2-day commercial shoot. This was like, I showed up at the same place every day for a year. It felt like real work. And to have that audience feedback, it was just all so amazing. And I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. The problem with learning that at that age was, you know, when I was 18 years old and I was in a lull in my career, I was like, wait, what do I do now? What happens if I'm not always working? Should I be learning something else or studying something else? Fortunately, before I had to answer the question, I did get another job, moved to LA, and American Pie happened soon after. So, so I was very, very lucky in that sense.
Yeah.
Because I still don't know what I would do if I wasn't doing this. Still have no idea.
Jason, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today. We hope everyone goes out and sees The Subject when it's released later this month.
Thanks so much, Eric. Thank you for having me.